So somebody sent me this video of a fitness influencer who talks about kettlebells. Now it seems he comes up with a contrarian message where he says, well, kettlebells are not useful. And when you look at his YouTube channel, you can see that before he didn't get any traction at all. And now he gets some traction and he got some views, and it seems that he doubles down. And I want to react to his talking points because I think having an open discussion and conversation about a tool that we all love is vital and is helpful, because if we have a thesis at the end of the day, one of its core tenets is it has to be falsifiable. So I want to listen to the dude. I want to listen what he says and give you my thoughts about it. And if you're over 40 and you want to become strong, fit, and lean without going to the gym, download my free ebook in the first link in the description.
Kettlebells are nonsense. Well, take it from me, from someone who has done all the kettlebell training that you can do, cleans, snatches, swings, windmills. I've done it all with the kettlebell.
So if you use your own experience as a thesis, that's almost all the time not a very good start, because at the end of the day, this is then just your opinion and not a well-educated recommendation. So the first thing that you exhibit is a subjective experience or your subjective truth. And then my question would be, okay, you say you've trained with kettlebell, so how does it look like? What is your form? What is your technique? Have you been exposed to only one side of the coin, the typical hard style base that the West has been exposed to only? Or have you also seen the other side, the dark side of kettlebell training? What weights are you using? Did you compete? Are you an athlete? Or are you just a user, a practitioner who picked up the kettlebell and found out, well, that thing is just not for me, which is totally legitimate. Second, you would have to follow up with objective experience or objective truth, such as how many people did you coach? What is the age group? Do they have physical ailments? What results did you get? Are you training just one person or two or five? Or do you have experience with hundreds of people from all over the world? Plus, what is the education you have received? Have you educated your trainers? Have you built a business, or is it just you on your own? These are vital questions that I would ask before I would listen to somebody's opinion and then judge it accordingly.
Use kettlebells long enough and survive long enough with kettlebells and you'll find out that they're the villain. What I mean by that is these things are dangerous, very technical lifts that require a lot of skill that don't translate into what people are using them for. Now, if you want to use kettlebells to get better at kettlebells, fine, by all means, because you enjoy doing a kettlebell movement. Like I said, I love a kettlebell. I've done all different sorts of exercises with kettlebells. They were a part of my fitness journey, but the risk reward from kettlebells, it's nonsense. Why would you ever do something that is at such a high risk, with such high speeds, with such, again, technicalities involved, that if you do one of them wrong, you're going to hurt yourself? I just was listening to a podcast where someone talked about they were doing some swings and their back is out.
Any exercise can be dangerous. You can be outdoors jogging and then you get hit by a car. You can stumble over a strength machine, stumble on the treadmill, and then severely hurt yourself. A kettlebell can drop on your head, even though we have seen in practice this has never happened. We've also only seen once that a kettlebell slipped from a practitioner's hands. And a dumbbell can drop on your foot, the barbell can drop on your head. So you can hurt yourself with everything. That being said, a skill is not something to be afraid of. Building a skill means you just get more comfortable and more confident around that tool. Your enjoyment goes to the roof, and then of course also your results. So building skills is a good thing. And two things can be true at the same time. Yes, skills require a little bit more of a learning curve, yet at the same time, they can be very fun. It can be fun to learn a new skill. It can help you improve and develop your athleticism in the end. It's not just mindless pushing and pulling, which can lead to the fact that you'll stop working out altogether. When we talk about high speeds and fast movements, it's all about structural integrity. You have to condition your body to handle that type of movement. That means if you build up your GPP, this is what we call general physical performance or preparedness, a little bit more strength, more endurance, more mobility, more coordination, then you can do pretty much everything. And that's the reason why it is the first phase of a solid periodization of building an athlete. And this is where most people can stop, because most people don't have to specialize like the athlete does, but everybody can bring up their GPP. And we think that the kettlebell is a great tool to do this. And just because somebody's back is out, well, that's a subjective experience, which is unfortunately very sad, but that's not a universal truth. We have seen from experience that people talk to us and said, well, the kettlebell gave me a tennis elbow or tendonitis. And in the conversation, we found out, well, it's actually not the kettlebell. It's that forearm builder, the thing that you can crush, right? He did it 70 reps a day, almost every day. Okay, and that's probably the reason why he developed some form of tendonitis. And there's also the question of what do you do besides the 24 hours a day that you don't train? If we just assume that you train 1 hour a day, which is not even necessary, let's just say 3 hours a week, but just for the sake of this example, what are you doing for the remaining 23 hours? How is your stress level? How do you sleep? How do you eat? How fit are you? How old are you? So many factors that influence the load and the capacity model, which I'm going to share more about in a second in this video.
The reasons why they're nonsense is because of that technicality. You have to have all these different checkpoints perfect. The high speeds, because you're swinging them, or especially with the kettlebell swing. If you're using it like a dumbbell and you're just pressing it or curling it or something, that's different. Squatting with it, that's different. But if you're swinging, snatching, cleaning, those types of movements, those things are not only are they dangerous and technical because of those high speeds, because of the heavy weights. Force equals mass times acceleration. We want to try to keep forces low if we want to stay safe.
Perfection is not at all required. And I know that this has been drilled into the minds of many people who got started with the kettlebell because it's a loaded gun and you have to be careful, otherwise you'll explode and you'll disintegrate. That's all crap. You don't have to be scared of the kettlebell. It's just a tool that you can use. You can develop the skills, you can build up the coordination, but you don't have to be scared. We say perfection is trained. It's not something that you're born with. When we talk about force needs to be low to be safe, let's just extrapolate what I call the 4 tenets of truth. Force is the amount of energy that you can put into an object. Work is the distance that you can carry, push, or pull that object. Power is how fast you can move the object, how much energy can you put into the object from a time perspective. And then at the end, we have endurance. How efficient can you display proper cyclical locomotion for a very high average speed? Forces don't have to be low to be safe. If you want to be safe, you just have to have the proper capacity to handle the load. Whether that is fast or slow doesn't matter. Just make sure the structural integrity is built before you jump into an exercise that is a little bit more, requires a little bit more proficiency or weights that are a little bit heavier. But that's the good thing about perfecting the skill. You can make a lot of mistakes in the beginning. In fact, you have to, because otherwise you won't be able to learn. Because if you want to learn how an exercise works, you also have to understand how it doesn't work.
You're there to get cardio and weights. That's what people tend to say what they want with kettlebells. They're like, well, I can get a weight training and I can get my cardio in. Well, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up like any other cardio movement. You're going to become more and more efficient at that movement. Now, again, if you don't become super efficient because your technique is off, you're going to get hurt. So you're not even going to have a chance to do that. But once you do become efficient, once your technique is really, really good, you no longer work your muscles to the level of extent that you want, which then...
Now, my main man gets it twisted right here. And he does this very often in the video and repeats himself. So he talks about efficiency being an issue, saying that, hey, if you get very efficient at an exercise, you're not making any gains. Well, my man, you probably have never heard of weightlifting. If you want to lift the heaviest weight off the floor, snatch or clean and jerk it, you have to use the most efficient bar path, or else you create unnecessary effort, which will lead to you leaking energy or you're wasting energy because you move the bar in a way that is not efficient. So Becoming efficient is a must. This is what the human body is geared towards. Ask your brain. You get very efficient at doing tasks because then the brain power is reduced and you can focus on other things, like, for example, a heavier weight. So if you get efficient at an exercise, it doesn't mean that you're having an insufficient load, because if you train insufficiently, this means that the demands that you're placing on the body are not enough for the gains or not enough for adaptation. It has nothing to do with efficiency and has everything to do with the fact that you just have to pick either a heavier weight, or you have to run a little bit faster, or just work according to the laws of progressive overload.
For the purposes of getting strong, getting lean, or getting more muscle, or getting just healthier in general because your bone density is up and because you look good and you feel good, if those are your reasons why, kettlebells should be one of the last things you ever consider. In regard to the swings, the snatches, again, those more Olympic lifting type things. And then typical kettlebell training always usually involves some sort of swing. So with that being said, what should you do instead? We've talked about it on this channel. I've given links to Doug McGuff and Jay Vincent and Drew Bay. Find training that is safe and effective, meaning.
And this sounds like a lot of gaslighting. So we have great results with our clients. From a universal perspective, the people that we coach and from other branches, from other trainers, and even those that I don't really agree with, they get great results with kettlebells too. Then we have folks like, let's say, Levi Marquardt. Look at the guy. The guy is a monster, has great results. I have made great results and great strides in my progression, and I'm really happy with it. Because here is the universal truth about kettlebells. In the end, it's a weight, and your body does not recognize the tool you're using. The body only recognizes the amount of resistance or the amount of demands that you put on the body. And if you're looking for improved health, you have to improve your GPP, as we always talk about, general physical preparedness. And kettlebells are the cousin of weightlifting, and weightlifting is the epitome of athleticism. So you most definitely will improve your athleticism on all fronts.
Find training that is safe and effective, meaning the muscles it doesn't matter what speed you move at. The muscle responds to the need of effort. You can do that going super slow. You can do that doing isometric. You don't even have to move. There's no danger in not moving. If I'm just pushing up against an inanimate object, there's tons of different ways that I can do this.
And here's talking about closed kinetic chain exercises like a push-up, for example, where you push against the wall, you have a stable surface. That's great, but open kinetic exercises like a press is also great because it forces the body to adapt from different angles, and this is what I think makes a lot of sense. So just because you do a kettlebell press doesn't mean that you cannot do a push-up and vice versa. Sometimes people think in black and white where they say, if I do a push-up, I'm not allowed to do a press or whatever. But this is not the case. The truth, however, is that people have tendencies to enjoy certain forms of movement more than the other, and this is where it boils down to. And if we talk about cardio, you need cyclical movements. You can't build your cardio with push-ups, for example. You have to run, or you have to do rows, or you have to do snatches. And a snatch, for example, is an open kinetic chain exercise where the body has to work. Every single muscle fiber is firing. That's the benefit that you're getting. And the requirements is that you have to learn the skill a little bit. But if we harken back to what we have just learned in the video, is that you don't have to be scared to learn a complex exercise with a light weight, because it all boils down to load versus capacity when it comes to injury.
And it's easier to use perfect technique when you're doing things that are less weight and less speed. I'm keeping those forces down. I move slow and controlled. If something goes out of whack, I can change it. When I'm going fast and I'm moving, it's hard to see it. Even as a trainer, it's hard to find those technique points to tell you, you need to change this, you need to change that. So you go slow, you work to failure or close to failure. You, again, change direction slow, the exact opposite of a kettlebell. A kettlebell, you're snapping it up and down, boom, boom, driving through. Whereas this, you're transitioning slowly, maybe even coming to a complete stop, maybe just doing an isometric hold.
I wholeheartedly agree with doing exercises slowly, especially the ones that you can do slow. A swing or a snatch, for example, you can't do them slow, and a jerk as well. So if we take these exercises to the side, I think it makes sense to learn the exercises very slow, and you can course correct them. I also agree. So the slower you do an exercise, the more time your brain has to adapt to the movement and learn how to move as safely, as effectively, as efficiently as possible. And this is how we, for example, build the fundamentals with our clients. And once they have built the structural integrity and the fundamentals, then we take them shopping, and then we have ballistic exercises. And when the structural integrity is built, you can, like I said, do almost anything. And of course, with a snatch and a swing, it is not that easy to do the exercise slowly, but there are certain phases that you can break the exercises down, and then you can do them slowly. But at the end of the day, you just have to jump into the cold water. You don't have to be perfect in the beginning. We always say your first swings are your worst swings, and that's totally fine. And here we can see his lack of experience is showing. You can do the snatch, the swing, or the jerk as fast as you want to, and I can spot your mistakes in a split second. And I'm not saying this to brag, but I'm saying this to prove that I'm not an armchair expert like this guy seems to be. Because if you have worked with many people from all around the world, you've had a lot of coaching and you know the fundamentals, you can see the mistakes instantly. And I guarantee you, even in one of the most explosive sports like weightlifting, a good coach, you can move the barbell as fast as you want to, and the coach can point out in split second what you are doing wrong.
That's what you're trying to do. If I try to exhaust my muscle fibers by doing a kettlebell swing, my form will be bad. I will have to suffer in regard to the form, which means my chance of injury is not, there's not a chance. Get rid of the chance. It's guaranteed.
Guaranteed injury? That's absolute nonsense, my man. You don't have to move perfectly. We always say once the level of intensity is rising, the form might take some collateral damage, and that's totally fine. When you look at elite athletes, in their cases, almost all the time, yes, the form sometimes looks incredibly crisp throughout all the movements, but once the challenge gets a little bit greater and the intensity is rising to a level where even the athlete is not used to it, you see that form breaks down to a certain extent, and that's fine. We always say if form breaks down, but it's still a good lift, you are totally fine. And please stop thinking that your body, even if you have been sedentary all your life, your body's not made out of glass. You won't disintegrate just because you do a snatch. This is one thing that I really get frustrated with when you hear these gatekeepers and these influencers and all these dudes and gals online that tell you, well, if you do the exercise wrong, you're going to break down, disintegrate, and die within a second. That's crazy. And what this creates is, for some people, it's this fear-mongering that they think, oh, I'm not allowed to snatch the kettlebell because Comrade, my main comrade, told me that the kettlebell explodes if I swing it up and I break my arm. Get out of here. That's just not true. If you're using a light weight and if you are a sane person, you're not walking up to a 32 kg kettlebell and you try to snatch it for the first time. Being a sedentary person, this is not going to happen. How do you think we're supposed to learn? How do babies learn how to walk? Imagine once a baby starts walking and we say, listen up, little fella, if you trip, you're going to die. Well, guess what? He or she is never going to learn how to walk, because walking means falling on your butt sometimes. And maybe you hurt yourself a little bit, but that's the essence of learning something. So don't be scared, but just go ahead and do the movement, give it a shot, and make sure it's a lightweight and you're safe.
Pavel Tetsulin, who was one of my mentors. I used Pavel for lots of things because I did tons of kettlebells when I was doing all this different type of training. Like I said, I've done it all. You listen to this guy talk and he says he can only do kettlebell swings and dips because of his shoulders, because of his back, because of his... He can't do any of these other lifts. He can't do any of these overhead lifts. And this is the guy who brought kettlebells over to the United States from Russia. He popularized them here, at least. And that guy can't even do the exercises he talks about. And he's not that old. I forget how old he is, but he's not like he's 80.
I've done it all. Brother, you need to eat a big piece of humble pie. I guarantee you, you haven't done it all. Nobody has. And those who have are still working on their technique. Elite athletes are still working on their technique despite being world champions. So get out of here with this, I've done it all and now I know it. No. If you are at a precipice where you slowly transcend the fields of a practitioner and become an expert, guess what? You become very humble because you realize, wow, this thing can do so much, and it's not even kettlebell related. Barbells, anything that requires expertise and skill, once you become an expert, you recognize, wow, I'm just at the beginning. And if you only know Pavel and hardstyle, your circle of influence is way too small. There are way bigger fish in the pond. There's way more to kettlebells than just that little part that you have probably been exposed to the first time you've picked up a kettlebell. And I agree that Pavel's swing and dips program is nonsense. I would never do it and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. But if Pavel wants to train like this, well, go ahead and train like this. But his injuries are not kettlebell related, my man. And if structural integrity is compromised, you can't do any form of exercise or any form of movement that triggers that structural issue. And what that means is we have clients who had severe shoulder trauma and now they can't do presses or they can do it, but they can't drop the kettlebell into the rack position. Funny thing though, they can snatch it. Then we have other clients, they can't do any form of overhead movements at all because it triggers the compromised tissue, joint, or muscle. And it all harkens back to the load versus capacity model. If you use a load, that can be a kettlebell, a weight, a lighter one, a heavier one, that exceeds your body's capacity to handle that load, injury is going to happen. Maybe not instantly, but maybe down the line somewhere. So what you have to do is you have to choose the proper load to challenge your body's capacity in a safe way. And once the body's capacity have been challenged and the adaptations have happened, you probably have to change the load. And if we talk about legendary kettlebell folks, Sergey Rudnev, Valery Fedorenko, Steve Carter, all a little bit older, healthy and well, still moving kettlebells. See? Just because one guy has an injury and therefore he can only do one particular set of exercises, that's not a universal truth that applies to everybody.
If you want to get better at kettlebells, you do more kettlebells. But doing kettlebells ain't going to help you with anything else. You got to practice your skill. And again, if I get better at a skill, I become more efficient at it. So the whole attitude on getting a workout or training or move or using my muscles and getting a cardio workout, it starts to go out the window because you're more efficient. So your muscles don't work as hard. Because of efficiency means you're doing less work. So now you're not using your muscles, which means you're not going to get as good of a cardio workout, which means the whole reason why you're there is gone.
Yes, working out with kettlebells will most definitely improve your kettlebell confidence, and coordination will improve because an open kinetic chain exercise, like the clean and press, for example, requires your body to move independently through time and space. This means your brain's coordination with the muscles, the ligaments, the joints, everything has to improve. And once your brain-muscle communication improves because you're placing specific demands on it, your spinal cord will take over the job, and this is where you then become an expert, and then you can only focus on your breathing or pick up heavier weight. This is what you do when you master coordination. And it's also fun because it's not just mindlessly pushing and pulling weights, but it always requires your brain to be active and adjust when necessary. Second, you can improve your calorie burn, which can help you with your fat loss goals. Because with a kettlebell, you can train unbroken for 6 minutes, 10 minutes, even 30 minutes, marathons, without putting the kettlebell down. That's the unique feature, which improves time under tension. Hence, more calories are getting burned. Number 3, you will improve your cardiovascular endurance because you're using cyclical movements like the snatch, for example, which will most definitely improve one of the strongest and most important muscles that you need in your body, and that is your heart. Number 4, you will improve strength because you're actually working with an external weight that you can adjust, by the way. Number 5, your mobility will improve. I call kettlebell training weighted locomotion. And because we are cousins of weightlifting, we have to move not only through full range of motion, but also go into full lockout, fully extend the arm, straighten the arm as much as we can. We cannot leave any stone unturned in that matter. And this will improve your mobility as well. And the offset weight of the kettlebell will even enhance this. Number 6, you can improve your back pain because we can strengthen very important muscles in the midsection. Number 7, we have minimalist training programs. We don't need a lot of exercises, which can be time saving. We can build muscle because, again, we're using a weight. Number 8, they're awesome for the joints because of the ballistic momentum nature of it. A lot of people with joint issues love the kettlebell because we don't load the joints, we stress them in a good sense where the capacity is still upheld with the load they're replacing on the body, which therefore can improve joint integrity. And finally, contrary to popular opinion, I say it is easy to learn and a great way to progress beginners into more advanced lifts. And you, my friend, are confusing efficiency with insufficiency, and you don't seem to have a good understanding of progressive overload. A, your body will always become very efficient at what it's doing because you don't want to waste energy by creating unnecessary effort. B, if the demands are not high enough to stimulate any benefits or gains or adaptations, then you have to change the intensity or the load. This has nothing to do with efficiency, but it has everything to do that you're using insufficient intensity or loads during your workouts. And I want to harken back to the weightlifting example. Lasha, the world record holder of the clean and jerk with over 260 kilograms, was able to move that weight because of his strength, explosiveness, athleticism. Of course, I'm not taking anything away from this, but also because he was moving efficiently. And according to your logic, you would walk up to Lasha and say, hey, listen, man, your bar path is way too efficient. You have to roll the bar out in front of you to get more stimulus, when at the end of the day, you're just creating unnecessary effort and a leak of energy.
But the training principles that you should be thinking about that overlap any training program are doing things safely and effectively, meaning you're going to go safe by going slow, and you're going to be effective by exhausting every muscle fiber that you can get your hands on from head all the way down to toe.
Fast doesn't mean unsafe. You can hurt yourself by lifting a very heavy couch very slowly because that heavy couch, even though you moved it very slowly, was too much of a load for your body's capacity to handle. At the same time, I can move a light kettlebell very fast if my body's capacity is able to handle it. So in the end, here's what you need for GPP or better health or muscle gains or any type of physical benefits that regular exercise can give you. First, you build structural integrity to condition your body for heavier loads or even more advanced exercises. And yes, of course, you use basic exercises to do this. And then you're using progressive overloads, even with those basics that you started with. And then you jump into more advanced exercises that can give you more fun, more enjoyment, and get more work done. And in the end, you get a high return on your investment for the time that you've put in. And in essence, you always want to build all 4 tenets of strength, as I call them. Let's revisit them. You want to become stronger, putting force into an object. You want to be able to carry stuff longer or move it to full range of motion. This is work. You want to be able to display strength as fast as possible in certain situations. That's power. And you want to be able to improve your endurance. Endurance is maximizing your average speed of cyclic locomotion. So here we are at the end of the video. I was listening to his message with an open mind because I want other people to falsify our thesis that kettlebells are awesome, because this is how we solidify the thesis and we can learn and improve on it. But unfortunately, it was just a typical contrarian message because he recognized he got some views on it. Now he doubles down, and there are no solid, substantial arguments made in the video. So unfortunately, my man, you just got cooked. So here's the next thing that you have to do. Clean and press that like and subscribe button. Share with a friend who's also interested in kettlebells. And if you made it this far, download my free ebook in the first link in the description called the Kettlebell Code. If you're over 40, 50, or 60, you don't have a lot of time, but you still want to take care of your fitness, This is where the kettlebell comes in because it improves your GPP. All these physical markers of performance and these physical qualities that the body can offer. And if you're looking for a shortcut, I have it for you right now in the first link in the description or in the pinned comment. It's 100% free.